Do not forget to like, comment, subscribe and share. Let's examine whether Independence Day has any meaning today. We will see what the fathers of the United States fought for, and we will see if this famous sentence still has a meaning. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Let's start.
Taxes, laws, and more taxes. In 1764, they began to impose new laws and taxes. They implemented a number of laws including the Sugar Act. The Sugar Act, also known as the American Revenue Act, was a revenue-raising act passed by the British Parliament of Great Britain in April of 1764. The earlier Molasses Act of 1733, which had imposed a tax of 6 pence per gallon of molasses. Protests in Boston. In 1773, the British imposed a new tax on tea. Several patriots in Boston protested this act by boarding ships in Boston Harbor and dumping their tea into the water. This protest became known as the Boston Tea Party.
Today we have special taxes on alcohol, cigarettes, etc. So what has changed? Except for the government that citizens pay to.
The Stamp Act. The Stamp Act of 1765 was an act of the Parliament of Great Britain that imposed a direct tax on the British colonies in North America and required that many printed materials in the colonies be produced on stamped paper produced in London, carrying an embossed revenue stamp.
Which means you have to pay taxes on everything you write, like a newspaper etc., and that the government can control who gets permission to do it. The same thing we have today in the television press and on the internet. Nothing changed.
The American Revolution against British gun control. The 1774 import ban on firearms and gunpowder, the 1774–75 confiscations of firearms and gunpowder, and the use of violence to effectuate the confiscations. When he dispatched the Redcoats to break up an illegal town meeting in Salem, 3,000 armed Americans appeared in response, and the British retreated. Gage's aide John Andrews explained that everyone in the area aged 16 years or older owned a gun and plenty of gunpowder. Before dawn on September 1, 1774, 260 of Gage's redcoats sailed up the Mystic River and seized hundreds of barrels of powder from the Charlestown Powder House. If the British used violence to seize arms or powder, the Americans would treat that violent seizure as an act of war, and would fight. And that is exactly what happened several months later, on April 19, 1775. Governor Gage directed the Redcoats to begin general, warrantless searches for arms and ammunition. According to the Boston Gazette, of all General Gage's offenses, what most irritated the people was seizing their arms and ammunition. The Provincial Congress. On October 26, 1774, the Massachusetts Provincial Congress adopted a resolution condemning military rule, and criticizing Gage for unlawfully seizing and retaining large quantities of ammunition in the arsenal at Boston. The Provincial Congress urged all militia companies to organize and elect their own officers. At least a quarter of the militia, the famous Minutemen, were directed to equip and hold themselves in readiness to march at the shortest notice. The Provincial Congress further declared that everyone who did not already have a gun should get one, and start practicing with it diligently. Meanwhile, Benjamin Franklin was masterminding the surreptitious import of arms and ammunition from the Netherlands, France, and Spain. The Massachusetts Provincial Congress offered to purchase as many arms and bayonets as could be delivered to the next session of the Congress. Massachusetts also urged American gunsmiths diligently to apply themselves to making guns for everyone who did not already have a gun. A few weeks earlier, the Congress had resolved, that it be strongly recommended, to all the inhabitants of this colony, to be diligently attentive to learning the use of arms. Derived from political and legal philosophers such as John Locke, Hugo Grotius, and Edward Coke, the ideology underlying all forms of American resistance was explicitly premised on the right of self-defense of all inalienable rights. From the self-defense foundation was constructed a political theory in which the people were the masters and government the servant, so that the people have the right to remove a disobedient servant.
And again, a different government but similar control, still confiscating weapons, still requires the approval of the government to get your natural right, and still use force to take your weapons. So what has changed?
There are many other laws that the fathers fought against, such as the need for permission and payment of tax to move from place to place.
The same law now exists in a different name, a driver's license.
British control over public land, and the law of what citizens can or cannot do on the land.
There are many more laws that the American fathers have fought against and which now exist under other names. So how did the government succeed in putting the same laws that led to the War of Independence back on the citizens without the citizens rebelling against it? Simple: use individual cases of horrific acts to change the law, by saying that they want to protect the citizens. For example, when did gun control laws begin? June 26, 1934. The first piece of national gun control legislation was passed on June 26, 1934. The National Firearms Act, NFA, part of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal for crime, was meant to curtail gangland crimes of that era such as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Does it stop something? No, and today elected officials want to increase the law because of a few cases of mass shooting. But it made people agree to give up the right the fathers fought for, and not stand by those who would not give up this right. Driver's licenses. As the number of motor vehicles reached tens of thousands, state and local governments assumed a new power, authorizing vehicles and drivers. In 1901, New York became the first state to register automobiles. By 1918 all states required license plates. States were slower to require licenses for drivers. Only 39 states issued them by 1935 and few required a test, despite widespread concern about incompetent drivers. According to this, we know a driver's license came to tell the citizens that anyone on the road would know how to drive. Does this work? No, so why is there still a driver's license? People will tell you for the money, but the money is only a bonus. The license comes so that the state can spy on the citizens without being forced to go to court. The state knows where you live and when you go, where you went, according to your vehicle, how much money you have, using safety cameras on the roads where you are at any moment, and also the ability to take or not to give you the right to move on the roads. And again, using the statement that we protect you, they have taken another right that the fathers have fought for. Federal Communications Commission. The FCC's mission, specified in Section 1 of the Communications Act of 1934 and amended by the Telecommunications Act of 1996, Amendment to 47 U.S.C. 151, is to make available so far as possible, to all the people of the United States, without discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, or sex, rapid, efficient, nationwide, and worldwide wire and radio communication services with adequate facilities at reasonable charges. The Act furthermore provides that the FCC was created for the purpose of the national defense and for the purpose of promoting safety of life and property through the use of wire and radio communications. So again, they took the citizen's right to express and voice his opinion on the radio, television, press, etc. By saying that it is for the sake of state security, now you need permission from them to open a radio station, TV station, and so on. And they can decide if you will get permission, if what you say matches what they want, and if not, they can silence you by saying that they will not give you a permission. And again you gave up your right. How many rights you have given up in this way? So what is the value of the Bill of Rights today? And what right remained intact? What kind of right will they take in the future in the name of protecting civilians? Will citizens wake up in time? Or should we throw the Bill of Rights and Constitution into the historical garbage?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God? I do.
Every state employee since the founding of the United States swears to defend and protect the Constitution. And therefore anyone who made changes to the Constitution betrayed his oath and thus the Constitution. Therefore, any change is illegal, and citizens have the right to demand that the changes be deleted. The government does not want citizens to know about this right, they do not want citizens to know that all these changes are illegal. For every policeman, or judge before you, asked one question: do you follow the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? It does not matter where you are, if he is not, he is betraying his oath, and therefore the badge, the office, the power he has no longer exists. So what are you celebrating on Independence Day? Hope you've learned something and you've enjoyed. If so, you know what to do.